Hello, hello, y'all. I am fortunate enough here to be here today with Mr. Carl. Carl, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Who the heck are you, and what are you doing here today?
Ryan, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, Carl Richards, that's my name, obviously. Essentially, what I do, I run a full service podcast agency where we help coaches, consultants, subject matter experts, real estate professionals, folks like that who don't have the time or the technical skills to be in the podcasting space, not only launch their shows, but also maintain them so they can focus on their business while we help them be seen as the go-to expert. So, and that, the podcasting world has evolved a lot in 25 years. So our job is also to keep people up to date with what's going on. So, we have a community that allows people to do that. So just really a lot of connections and networking and getting people the information they need, but then also helping them be the best version of themselves that they can be.
I'm very curious about this because you've got years in this industry that, even me, I've just dove into. Where do you see this industry of podcasting going in the next, let's stretch it out, 5, 10 years?
Uh, that's a good question. If I had a crystal ball and I was to gaze in it, I think that what we're seeing now is a huge push towards, and I think this is going to be that this will continue to happen, is a push towards community. And I don't mean community as in we're going to set up a bunch of little groups and work in silos, those kinds of things. But by community, what I mean is the most important thing in podcasting used to be just getting a show. You get a show, you have a show, you get some listeners, and everyone lives happily ever after. Now, though, listeners want to know more about you. They want to continue to, it's the old know, like, and trust factor. So they want to continue to learn more about you. They want to know what makes you tick. They want to know what you're doing behind the scenes. They want to know what you can do to help them. And they also want to connect with you outside of the show. So we're seeing a lot of podcasters creating these communities, be they meetups or be they Facebook groups, other groups on LinkedIn or what have you, that are allowing people to connect afterwards because it allows people to feel like they're a part. The other thing too is people like that content. I mean, I'm a couple of years older than you, I'm sure, but I remember when Star Wars was brand new, right? Episodes 4, 5, and 6 were brand new in the movie theaters, and you had to wait for that movie to come into to be zoomed into your television screen, and it was live, right? Everything was live then, right? Live in the sense of it was live television. But before that, if you went to the movie theater to see the movie, you could then watch the behind the scenes clips of the making of Star Wars, which really excited you and kept you connected to the brand, so that when it did come live, when it was beamed live into your home television screen, you were excited to see it again, to see all the things that they talked about. So that's what we're seeing now in the contemporary sense of people coming into the podcasting space and realizing that, okay, yes, I want to listen to Ryan, for example. I want to listen to Ryan, but I want to follow Ryan. I want to learn more about Ryan, the person, Ryan, the business owner, Ryan, the whatever he is, so I can then decide whether or not I want to keep following him.
And where do you, with everything having kind of a pendulum, you got the, very unauthentic influencers. What was that, 5 years ago? That was kind of the
Yeah.
thing back then. Everyone was perfect, right? All that kind of stuff. And now it's the raw, the vulnerable, the real. That's what gets the most connection and actually connects with people and builds those relationships. When you bring someone on to your services, normally what are some things they understand wrong about podcasting that the average person wouldn't, the average speaker, the average business owner wouldn't really assume it was that way?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you just hit on one of them, and that's that raw and real is authentic. Raw and real is dangerous. If you think about it was to the 2022 Academy Awards, the slap heard around the world. There's a reason why things don't, especially if you're new to the space or new to speaking, that you shouldn't really do anything live. Even as a broadcaster, spent years doing live radio. So much of what you thought was live was actually recorded behind the scenes because you just wanted to make sure everything was not perfect, but seemed to be authentic and organic. Right. So there's the difference. So when you're recording something, by way of example, you can keep the authenticity piece in, but what you don't need to keep in is all of your mistakes. right? So you can edit out all the mistakes, the ums, the ahs, the likes. If you clear your throat, or if somebody says something that is a glaring error, you can fix that in post, but you can't fix it if it's live. That's one of the misnomers, I think, when people come to the podcasting world, is they think that, well, I'm just going to throw something out there. I'm going to do it live and maybe somebody will follow me. Well, you have to go in. Number one, you have to go in with purpose. You have to know point A to point B. It's just like a roadmap, right? You need to know if you're going to my house, you need all the directions to get there, right? You can't stop along the route and think, oh, have I arrived yet? No, you need to give that to your listeners. And you also need to know what the goal of your show is, right? You need to know why it is that you're putting this show together. What is it about you, or your passion project, or your business, or your interest that people need to know about? Why is it that you're doing the show? Why are you sharing this information with me? So those are some of the things that people need to ask the questions of. So it's not that they're doing them wrong, it's that they're maybe not putting as much thought into it before they hit the record button or before they hit the go button. They're just literally charging forward. The other thing that's big too is there's so much technology out there now that makes it very easy to get into the podcasting space, which is good. The downside is there's also a lot of technology that makes us think that we're putting forward the best version of ourselves. We're not necessarily doing that if we're just relying on tools and not allowing ourselves to clean those things up. So recognizing that there are tools available for you, but the tools are meant to help you and also meant to shorten the work that you need to do, but also recognizing that those tools are not the things that are going to save you. You still need to come with exciting content. You still need to come with ideas. You still need to be able to formulate a thought, not just hit the record button and pray and spray.
And I've seen a few podcasts be purchased by radio stations recently for lots and lots of money. We're talking nine figures for some podcasts. What do you think their vision is? What do you think the goals or intentions of these radio stations that aren't really even radio stations anymore, like Sirius XM, for example? What are they doing purchasing these podcasts?
Well, I think the reason that the only reason I can think of is that the same reason why a conventional radio station would share any kind of content is it's to build their listening audience. So if you have a very popular podcast on Sirius XM, for example, you're going to have the opportunity to expand your listenership, right? As opposed to, okay, we've got some stuff there, but what if we had a big name, a big show on our platform? It's the same reason why, thinking back to the radio days, or even television, why would you put on a popular show? It's to get the listeners in. So I grew up listening to AM radio a couple of years ago. And AM radio, you always listen to American Top 40. And back then it was a guy by the name of Casey Kasem. So, but you would listen to that show because it was exciting. That, and everyone wanted to hear what number one was, right? They wanted to hear the countdowns. But that allowed the radio station to build out an advertising campaign around, hey, guess what? We carry on our radio station, we carry American Top 40 with Casey Kasem. You should buy advertising adjacent to that. So it's almost the same thing that you're mentioning with Sirius XM. And I don't know what other radio platforms are doing it. I don't know if iHeart's done it or other platforms have done it, but certainly if they've done that, it's because they recognize the value in that content or in that individual. Think about it. If somebody purchased Oprah Winfrey's podcast, one of them, that'd be a phenomenal thing to have on your channel, right? So similarly, that the radio stations are realizing that, okay, well, this is going to help us expand our programming beyond. Plus, I think that radio stations in general, be they terrestrial radio or the virtual radio stations, and there's lots of them out there, plus Sirius XM, they're realizing that podcasting isn't going away. This is the new trend. Radio as we know it is evolving. And so why wouldn't we evolve our platform to bring in popular podcasts as well?
And when a client starts working with you, a business owner, a coach, an author, a speaker, how does the conversation normally look when they get really clear on what is the goal of why you're doing this? It's going to take your time, your money. What are
Mhm.
they going to? What is the kind of reason or the why underneath why they're normally working with you to build a podcast?
Well, that's what we want to uncover. We want to know their why. It's not about our why, it's about their why. So we want to know why do they want the podcast? Number 1. Number 2 is, what's the end goal? Maybe end goal is the wrong word, but what's the goal? Why do you want the show? What are you hoping to get from this show? And then the investment piece as well. I don't like the word, sales, or the other term that you use. I prefer the term investment. It's not a cost, it's an investment. Just like it is when you write a book, it's an investment to write a book. It's an investment in your credibility. So we always want to come back to that with prospective clients, is if you are in this to elevate your credibility, your brand, your business, just like the big guys are doing, be it Joe Rogan or Tony Robbins or any of those big names, then you got to think about that too. What is it that you want, and how are you different than what maybe somebody else is doing? So what is it that makes you different than, not even necessarily the big names, but what makes you different than the other person? And what's interesting is, because podcasting is still evolving, there's still more bloggers out there than there are podcasters. There's there's still a huge opportunity. But that said, there's an opportunity for people to still trailblaze, even within their industry or within their community, within their virtual community, even right within their, what is it, 6 degrees of separation, within that connection, to be the leader and say, hey, I finally, after years of being a coach or a real estate investor or whatever it is, a speaker, an author, I have a podcast finally that is in alignment with what it is that I believe and what it is that I'm sharing already on my platforms.
And normally these days, you hear a lot of people, even like 5 years ago, you hear people say, "No, it's so oversaturated." Everybody has a podcast these days, that kind of thing. So when someone on a sales call gives you that kind of objection, how do you normally answer that?
There's 2 ways. Number 1, I'll start with the analogy again of, bloggers versus podcasts. For every 500 blogs, there's one podcast. So if you're a blogger, if you're a person that's relying on your blog to get your information out there, okay, well, this is an opportunity to merge them. And keep in mind too that people are busy, and people don't have the same time or the patience to sit there and read a 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 word blog. They don't, unless they really want to. Same as newsletters, right? I don't know how many newsletters lists I'm on, but do you think I read them? I might open them. I might
Yeah.
see a couple of quick, but I'm not reading them, right? People want those quick, the TikTok or the Instagram hook to get them in to watch or listen to what it is that you're saying. So there's that, right? So it's still the Wild West, right? There's not saturation when you think of it that way. The other way I like to think about saturation is when people say, well, there's a lot of, I don't know, seems like there's a lot of podcasts out there. Let me ask you this question, Ryan. Are there a lot of websites out there? Do you think in
Yes.
business, though, you still, in 2024, which is when we're recording this, do you
Yeah.
still think that you need a website to be in business? Of course you do.
It's
You don't
helpful.
say,
Yeah.
well, there's over 10 billion websites. I just made that number up. There's over, 100 million websites. I don't know if I'm going to have one. No, if you're a business owner, that's where people are looking for you. They're looking for you online. Of course, you're going to have a website. So a podcast is an extension of who you are. It's the extension of your business card. It's the extension of your book. It's the extension of it's another way for people to connect with you, and your audience or your clients. They're getting younger, right? I'm in my early 50s. Clients are getting younger. My ideal client is, I'm guessing, between the age, well, actually, it's not a guess. It's I know, between mid 30s to early 50s. That's my ideal client. Those are the real estate investors, the professionals who are getting into this for the first time. That's roughly the demographic. Guess what? A lot of those people are already listening to podcasts. That's where they're looking for you. So you have to remove the saturation thought piece from your brain and go, wait a minute, I'm going to build my audience regardless of how many people are out there. And people are doing it successfully all the time, starting at zero.
And when there's so many different ways that you see people talking about to grow your podcast, video podcast, even if it's on YouTube, you got, YouTube SEO, you've got guesting on other podcasts, you've got short form social media content on now LinkedIn is rolling out a short form content, platform to basically TikTokify LinkedIn as well. What do you normally recommend to your clients when they are looking to build their audience with their podcast?
Yeah, firstly is organic marketing. It's the one piece that a lot of us overlook is organic marketing. Social media marketing is great if you can beat the algorithms. Having an email list and sending to your email list is great, but there's other things that you can do organically on top of that that allow you to reach your audience. Number one is you should open your mouth and let people know you have a podcast. It would surprise you, Ryan, how many people will launch a podcast and then they'll go to networking groups and not say they have a podcast. It should be top of mind when you introduce yourself in front of a networking audience. Say, hey, my name is Carl Richards, and yeah, here's what I do. And oh, by the way, I'm also a podcaster, and my podcast is, right? It should be just organically roll off your tongue. It should be on your website. It should be something that you that is in your email signature. I've seen people grow their audiences just by making sure it's in their email signature. So all of these organic tools that allow us to build beyond just the hooks and the clips and the email send outs, the little things that we don't even think about. Anytime you're speaking on a stage, you should be saying, and again, depending on the type of talk you're giving, if you have the opportunity on the stage to say, and by the way, on my podcast, we talked about this a few months ago, that's promoting the fact that you have a podcast, right? And people will listen to that and say, oh, I got to check out Carl Richards' podcast and see what that's all about, or check out Ryan Brady's show to see what that's all about. So all of those organic methods make all the difference in the world.
And for this, I'll ask this reverse question. For the podcasters that are looking to get into in-person speaking from stage, how can they normally go about making that jump? I've spoken to a lot that say that's a very difficult kind of leap to take for them because it's on a computer with, a mic, and that's everything. And that's a hard step. So what do you normally recommend when they ask you that?
It's funny. It's not as hard as it seems. Sometimes when people say it's difficult, it might not be that it's difficult. It's that there's some trepidation. They might be nervous to get on the stage, or they might not know how to start getting on the stage. So there are organizations that allow you to get some stage time. One of them is Toastmasters. It's a great organization that I used to be involved years ago to get some stage time, get comfortable, grow confidence, learn how to write a talk, things like that. Some very basic things. And if you already have those skills, I did it in reverse because I wasn't a podcaster first. I was a broadcaster, then a speaker, then a podcaster. So I did it in a completely different order. But it's the same thing. If you don't know how to do something, what do? You either ask for help. That's one thing you could do, is ask somebody to help you, or you can just research and say, okay, how do I go about getting on stages? What are some of the things I need to do? Well, you probably need a speaker bio, or you need a speaker one sheet. So you need topics to talk about, number one. But then you also have to know what are some of the stages you want to be on. And knowing some of the stages you want to be on means understanding who your audience is, just like your podcast, right? So my podcast is about podcasting. So I like to talk to fellow podcasters or speakers or content creators or people who have some type of connection to communication. Different things about communication strategy, right? Similarly, if you're getting on a physical stage, what are your topics? What is it that you can talk about? Then you can figure out, all right, well, where are some of these stages located? And that's the nice thing about the era we live in today, you can Google that, right?
Yeah.
Google has become a verb. Google that.
Yeah.
If you Googled conferences, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
If you Google conferences for podcasters or podcasting conferences, or maybe some other buzzwords, marketing conferences, speaking conferences, because I work with coaches, coaching conferences, real estate conferences. All of a sudden now you're going to get a list of ones all over the world. And now your job is to truncate that and figure out the ones that are best suited for you.
And then, so it really sounds like a podcast and podcast guesting and speaking are all things that are part of someone's, credibility stack. They've got a
Sure.
book, they've got a TED talk, they've got speaking engagements, they got their speaker site,
Yeah.
they got their podcast, they got their business. What do you think? I've spoken with people and they've come to me and they've had 100,000 followers on Instagram, for example, and they say, hey, I've got a really solid Instagram profile, great short form content, but I don't have a website, I don't have a business, I don't have a podcast. And they're like, what the heck do I do to take this next step? I got all these engaged followers, a community. Where do I go next? What kind of guidance do you give to them? And I know
Sure.
it's kind of biased for the question, but I'm still curious.
I'm going to say start a podcast, but again, it's going to go back to what is the next step for you? It's not how do you take the next step. It's like, what is the next step, right? So if you are successful in the Instagram space and you don't have a business, do you want a business? Is that the next step for you? And if you do want a business, okay, what kind of business do you want? Do you want a brick and mortar business? Do you want to be just an influencer, or do you want to what is it that you want to do? Do you want to coach people? Do you want to be a consultant? Do you want to So it goes back to, because then you can figure out, once you know what your business is, then you can say, okay, well, now I know what I'm going to do. But if that's not what you want, why would you even need a podcast? You can have and by the way, you can have a lot of followers on Instagram and not have many listeners to your podcast. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is you can have a lot of people watching your Instagram reels or your TikToks, but are they converting? Are they necessarily converting to your podcast? Not always. Some of them are, but that goes back to, what are some of the other things that you're doing? And if you don't have anything for people to do, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about building community, about where the future is going. If you've got all these Instagram followers, you're thinking, well, that's my community. Well, not necessarily, because there's nowhere for them to go, right? If you have, hey, let's meet up on, I'll just say Zoom. Let's meet up on Zoom once a month. And hey, you're more than welcome to join us if you're one of my followers. Great. Now, all of a sudden, you have a captive audience, which, by the way, that can be a speaking opportunity for you.
Yeah.
But what is it that you're going to do when you're meeting up with them, right? So again, it's about deciding what it is that you want to do. And if it's a podcast, great. If that's your passion project, or you have something that you want to share, or you have, because there's tons of podcasts out there, right? It's, what's the purpose of your show? Goes back to that again. We'll go back to what's the purpose of it. But just saying, I have all these Instagram followers, I'm going to start a podcast. Great. It's going to be the same questions. What's the show going to be about? And what's the purpose? What's the end game, or what's the outcome you want from that show?
And I know I'm very curious to tap into your knowledge base of what has happened with your clients. For me, after I started this podcast, the Speaking to Expand podcast, and it was very clear about the target audience and who we have on and the value, we're just like the bridge. It's not a ton of my knowledge. If it's my knowledge, it's because I learned it from one of the guests normally. For what ended up happening was I started getting booked on stages, and then I, just as a speaker, and then I inquired, hey, I've got, this podcast, Speaking to Expand, this is who we target. Would it be cool if we would, go backstage in the green room and interview the speakers? How are they feeling before they get on stage? How did they get on stage? What message do they have for other people that want to be speaking on stages like this? They said, oh my gosh, I would love that. You can bring your whole videography team and interview all the speakers before they speak in the green room. I'm like, I just started this thing, and then this magically, happened, and it was not totally, it was intentional where we were going, but it was a surprise. So these surprise benefits that your clients realize of having a podcast, what are some of those that maybe the average speaker that's thinking of it and they're kind of one foot in, one foot out, they wouldn't realize XYZ would happen, that you're noticing happen for your clients?
I'm noticing a few things, actually. Number one is, I'm noticing what you're indicating, those opportunities to to have some of those conversations organically, right, after the show. I'm also noticing some joint ventures happening afterwards. So clients who have guests on their show, and they end up doing a joint venture partnership, or they end up hosting an event together, be it virtual or in person. And that wouldn't have happened if they hadn't connected in the podcasting space. So there's that. The other interesting thing that's happening is it's allowing some of my clients to land on other stages. So it's almost becoming it's not becoming a booking agency like organically, but it's allowing, because a podcast, the way I view a podcast, it's a speaking opportunity unto itself, right? Whether you're a guest or whether you're a host, if you treat it as a speaking opportunity, which and Ryan, again, thanks for having me on. This is phenomenal. But if you treat it as a speaking opportunity, that can only lead to more speaking opportunities, right? So I'm seeing that happen with more clients where they're saying, oh, you were on that show, or you host a podcast. We'd love to have you come and talk on our stage about X, Y, and Z. And it used to be about speaking. Now it's usually about podcasting, which is kind of cool that I'm the podcast guy that talks about podcasting, not only on the podcast, but on physical stages. So it's really, really cool. But that's happening more organically, I'm finding, with clients. They're being invited to speak on stages, or they're being invited into networks that they didn't even know existed. Yeah.
And for the professional speaker who sounds like they might be one of your clients, that they already get, paid $10K per gig, and they're given, 2 gigs a month. They just don't have the time to do a podcast, or at least they don't think they have the time. What are some of the pros and cons for them of starting a podcast when they're already kind of in their flow, doing their thing, and it's really hard to kind of get them out of their groove?
Yeah, sure. You know what? Talking to road warriors is an interesting one, because they're so used to being on the road. They're so used to on the road or in the air, right? Lost luggage, things like that. But the nice thing about podcast is the nice thing about a podcast is you don't have to leave the house. You don't have to leave the house. Here's how I frame it for speakers. All right. I'll say, what if I could guarantee you a minimum 52 speaking engagements every year? Would you say yes? Of course, and again, I've actually done this on stage. Everyone puts up their hand. Yeah, absolutely. I want to do that. All right. And the audience is a guaranteed at your ideal audience 100% of the time. Who'd say yes to that? Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a good chance they're going to buy. Oh, hands down. Absolutely. Sign me up. Where do I sign? Great. That's what a podcast is. So that's what I say to speakers. And the pushback is, well, but I'm used to speaking in front of 400 people. And of those 400 people that they're speaking in front of, how many are actually becoming clients? I'm not asking you to do the math, but I'm saying that maybe if 40 of them become clients, maybe if 1% convert to clients from a physical stage, you're doing well, right? You're doing really well. What if you had 40 listeners, and all 40 of those listeners bought from you? And then next month, and again, 40 is a very small number, but it's said that, if you're getting between 25 and 40 listeners, organic listeners in your first 7 days, that's a very small number. But if you're getting those few listeners, that's a successful podcast. Would you turn down a speaking opportunity to speak in front of your ideal audience every single week, where you know that somebody is definitely going to buy? Most people would say absolutely not. Where do I sign? But speakers seem to be in this, I got to be on a physical stage. You can do both. Why not do both? As I mentioned, why not sell from the stage the fact that you have a podcast and grow your audience by growing from speaking in front of an audience? So that's generally what I share with speakers.
There you go. There was a few statistics that I heard. Are you familiar with Jesse Itzler?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So he started a few companies like the Zico coconut water type company. He's a pretty big serial entrepreneur. And I saw a piece of his content, and he was talking about a statistic that was I think it was over 2 million podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Of those 2 million, only 10% have more than one episode. Of those, whatever it is, 200,000 left, there's, only 10% of that will do more than 10 episodes. And then of that, that 10%, only another 10% will do more than 50 or something like that. Do you know the actual statistics of what that is, so I don't totally butcher the stat?
I don't fully know the statistics, but
Okay.
you're right. I mean, there are about 5 or 6 million podcasts worldwide now, and I don't know what statistics those are that you're mentioning
Okay.
exactly, but of those 5 to 6 million, there's about a 40% pod fade, right? And part of
Yeah.
that is because there's a few different reasons. People will start a podcast, think it's easy, do a couple of episodes, and then say, well, that's hard. That takes too much time. And then they'll never come back to it. Or they'll have a podcast for a short period of time. Maybe something happens in their life that changes. Maybe they were doing it because, for example, like me, I was in broadcasting. A lot of radio stations event down the line, I don't know, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, a lot of them started doing podcasts. You should do a podcast.
Mhm.
Podcast, it takes time, right? So I do have 10 episodes, 15 episodes. It's fun. Then it becomes work, right? So there's that. But there's also the fact that people's businesses evolve too, right? So there are people who might have started a podcast. Maybe it was about their first business, and then they decided to shift their business and do something else. So they let that podcast go. So there's a few different reasons why we have pod fade. The big reason, though, is once people start, it's the commitment to keep going.
Hmm.
And it's not just it's start with the intent, the purpose, the goal, all of those things in mind, stuff we've already talked about here. And when you launch a podcast, you don't launch with just one episode, you launch with 10.
Yeah.
Because you have to allow it to be a marketing machine to get the word out there. I mean, Ryan, you know this. If you don't promote your podcast, nobody's going to listen to it. I think a lot of people think that if they put out a couple of shows, they're going to be instantly famous.
Hmm.
It's the Justin Bieber effect. I'm just going to do this and throw it on YouTube or throw it on Apple, and everyone's going to listen to it. And when that doesn't happen, they get discouraged and they quit. There's that too. Not knowing that podcasting is a long game, not a short game. And the people who are successful with podcasting, they're the ones who've been doing it 5, 10, 15, 20, some cases 25 years, like basically since podcasts were in diapers, right? They're the ones seeing the most success because they've stayed the course that whole time versus I'm doing a show, I'm not doing a show. I've got 2 episodes out there, it didn't work, right? It's kind of like the analogy I give sometime. It's sort of like having the goal to wanting to shed a couple of pounds, lose some weight, get in shape. And you go and you say, great, I'm going to eat a salad, maybe 2, maybe 3 salads. And then you notice that you're not shedding the pounds, so you quit. Is it the salad's fault? Right? So it's looking at it the right way and realizing it's a long game, not a short game. The statistics for podcasts are totally different than any other stats for radio, television, any other mediums. Sorry, any other media. That's plural for media. Medium is media, not mediums. I've been corrected on that a few times. But understanding that the stats don't mean anything. The stats don't mean as much as we think they do. Are you putting yourself out there? Are you seeing the results? Even if you're expecting them to happen overnight, unless you're somebody who's already paved that way for yourself, you are Oprah Winfrey, Joe Rogan, you already have that credibility or that celebrity status, it's going to take some time. Stick with it. It will happen.
How many episodes would a person have to release for it to be irrational that they are not successful?
That's a good question. That's a trick question almost. It depends on the show, really. I have clients who have achieved success within their first 10 episodes.
Wow.
And again, because it's by design, they're creating their show with a purpose, with a goal, aimed at the listener, calls to action in the episode, driving back to the website, driving to show notes, all of those things. But then I'll have clients who don't see it for 50 episodes. Either way, both are successful, right? But you typically see the needle creep up somewhere around episode 40, episode 50, and you continue to see those needles creep up, not just with listeners, but also with action. right? People going and absorbing or consuming your content in different ways, like going to your website, signing up for meetups, signing up for lunch, and whatever it is that you're offering. But I would say if you haven't seen success in the first 50 to 60 episodes, 10 is a stretch. If you haven't seen some success in the first 50 to 60 episodes, so a year, maybe it's time to look at why, and maybe course correct and go another year. I have clients that have been doing it 3 and 4 years. And if they get one client a year, that's a success for them, because for them, a client could be worth several $1,000s, even into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So one client a year from having a podcast, that's a success.
And what I was going to ask, what do you consider a success for your clients' podcasts? Or do they get clear on what that metric would be before they start working with you?
Yeah, they need to get clear. They need to get clear on that before they start the show. We get excited because we always want to help clients get a show going, but we also know that it does have to be done with purpose. It does have to have a goal in mind. So we like to look at that as opposed to just, do it as we go, but also recognizing too that most people will start a podcast with the intention at some point they want some ROI, they want some return on their investment. Sometimes we think of that as monetization. It's not, but sometimes we think of it as that. But what is the return on your investment? Is it a client? Is it a larger audience that allows you to do different things? And if you do have a larger audience, is that when we can start looking at other monetization type strategies, such as joint ventures, such as podcast swaps, other things too, to build community that go above and beyond your traditional sponsorship type things, but then also that go above and beyond the podcast itself.
And when your clients ask you, hey, I want to go guest on other podcasts, you say, okay, great. That's a legit way to do it.
Yep.
Here's how you can go do that. What is normally the tactical methodology you explain to them to do that?
Yeah, I use a tool that allows me to get on other podcasts. It's something that we can do. However, it is an industry within the industry, right? There are podcast booking agencies. That's all they do all day long. And they book you on podcasts, and they have guarantees and all of those things. What we share with people is, why don't you do this? Why don't you use this tool, this online tool, and use that and try that. And if that's going to get you on the shows that you want to get on, do that for a while. If there are specific shows you want to get on, we can maybe help you pitch and things like that. But yes, there is a certain methodology. I always share with our clients that even if you do have your own show, you should be always looking to get on other shows, because it's it's an extension of your credibility, right? So you have a podcast, yes, but are you a guest? For the longest time, Ryan, I didn't guest on podcasts.
Why not?
I didn't think I had to.
Huh.
To be quite honest, I thought, I have a podcast. Why do I need to go on other ones? Not realizing that, wait a minute, I have a show that I invite people to be on. Why wouldn't I want to go and guest on other shows? And once I started doing that, all of a sudden things started to change. Not only in my mind, in my thinking, but it also changed because I'm getting myself out there more and more and more. Right?
And how many guest appearances do you think a podcaster should make to get the growth they're looking for?
I think that depends on the individual.
Okay.
If you can commit to getting on at least one per month, I think you'll see some growth with that. If you can commit to one a week, even better. But if you can commit to one a month, just like I'll say, if you can commit to doing one speaking engagement a month, and then add one podcast guesting opportunity per month, well, now all of a sudden that's 2 speaking opportunities per month. Right now you've got 24 speaking opportunities. That's a pretty decent amount. But if you can do more than that, by all means, go and do more. I know folks that'll do, they'll guest on 5 podcasts a week or more.
Wow.
They'll do quite a bit of guesting. And that might be a strategy. And it's not something that you have to keep doing. Maybe it's a strategy, a short-term strategy where you guest for a period of time, and then you say, okay, well, you know what? It's been 2 years that I've been guesting. I'm good. I've been on some great shows, and maybe if something comes along, I'll do it again. But you know what? I'm good for now. But I say definitely get on as many as you can, but
Mhm.
within whatever your schedule allows. Yeah.
Let's say someone's listening and they are finding so much value in what you're saying and they want to carry a mini version of Carl Richards in their pocket. Where can they find you?
Sure, absolutely. Firstly, they can check out the podcast. It's Communication Connection Community. That is linked on my website, which is podcastsolutionsmadesimple.com. All of that information is there, including the podcast, by the way. The podcast is, I'm kind of biased when I say this. The podcast is great because if you're looking at podcasting as an opportunity to elevate your credibility, as Ryan and I have been talking about today, then there's some great resources there. The podcast is there. And yeah, that's the best way. And of course, my links to my social media is there as well.
Now, last question. From all your experience, both broadcasting, speaking, and working with clients that are podcasters, speakers, authors, coaches, what is one knowledge nugget that you would want to share with the aspiring speaker, the professional speaker, and or the entrepreneur who speaks to grow their business?
I would say if it's podcasting is something you want to do, take that first step. Don't be afraid to take that first step. Quite often I'll be asked, when's the best time to start a podcast? And I'll say probably about 2012, maybe, no, maybe 2010. The second best time is now. But now means taking that first step. So don't be afraid to take that first step. You never know where it's going to lead you.
Well, thanks for making the time to have this guest appearance, Carl. And if you're listening and you think you have one friend, just share it with one friend that you think would find it valuable. That one friend might be that one little pivot they needed in their life to take action. Thanks for taking the time to do this. And guys, thanks for taking the time to listen. Cheers, y'all.